Hey everyone, JVD here from the Villains Man, bringing another comic book review over Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, issues 1 through 4. It's a mini-series for Legendary Comics, who's done some comic books that tie into both Godzilla 2014 and Pacific Rim, which most of those are pretty good. I've got some reviews of them if you'd like to check them out. But this is a sequel to Kong Skull Island, which was a Legendary's hit movie, and if you've not watched it, besides the original Kong from 1933, it's probably the best one. Now, I've wanted to sit down and review this because it's the week of San Diego Comic-Con 2018, and as of July 18th, Monarch scientists become active on Twitter again, and they have a interactive global map with all their research facilities on it. And kaiju fans are going nuts because we can monitor Godzilla in the Pacific Ocean, which looks like he's heading to San Diego Comic-Con. There's also 3 Monarch research sites lit up. One is for Rodan in Mexico, one is for Mothra in China, and one is for King Ghidorah in the Antarctic. And, or I should say Antarctica, excuse me there. And most people have discovered there's another level of classification besides green. Everybody's in yellow. We've got a little bit more information, and it's got me really excited for it. But yet, nothing marked for Kong on there as I read this. But as I continue on here, for the movie Kong Skull Island, which took place in 1973, there's a character called Houston Brooks, which everybody kind of thinks is a nod to Brooks from the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series. But this book takes place in 2012. And if you go by the Monarch timeline that was released around Kong Skull Island, this is takes place with the message in a bottle mark, where, to quote, days before retirement, Monarch veteran Houston Brooks receives a coded message from his son. The message to Skull Island has revealed dramatic new information about Kong's origins and the role on the island. Now, he receives this in 2012, but this mission takes place in 1995, excuse me. So if you'll go back down the Monarch timeline, 1995, return to Skull Island, Monarch security officer Aaron Brooks defies his father Houston Brooks and leads an off-the-books mission to Skull Island to determine what has become of Kong since 1973 expedition. So basically, this is what this comic book covers, that mission in 1995. So you can mark 2 of these off the timeline. And some of these I'm very, very curious to see how they turn out as I kind of go over them and whatnot, to see if any of the people that are mentioned in this book that went with Aaron Houston are on there, and I do not see any of them. And this is kind of the second time I've went over these, and no, which kind of makes sense because spoiler alert, they all die, just like in Kong Skull Island, almost everybody dies. And that's kind of the whole point of the book. And basically, we're kind of getting an origin of Kong to a degree. It's not a lot. You've kind of gathered most of it through the movie, that he is the last of his species. The skull crawlers have killed off his kind, and it kind of gives you some insight of that book. But basically, it's the story of Houston Brooks' son, who defied Monarch and his father's wishes to keep the island a secret, and he thinks the public has the right to know. And it kind of ties into with, now that I think about it, with this Monarch Sciences website that's gone up, where you, as a civilian, have access to some of the files that Monarch has come. So it's almost like, since the Godzilla incident in 2014 with the Mutos, that now Monarch has come forward to the public, and kind of at this point they have no choice. So, but it's interesting now that I'm taking it that they've come to the forefront, because on the map, the Janjira spot is, you cannot look at it. And so that's interesting. I'm hoping before too long, after this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con, more of this will be discovered. But let's kind of, with that, let's kind of break down into the book and maybe spoil what little there is. But basically, Aaron Brooks, against his father's wishes, goes to the island. He's going to get some information. He's gathered a team, much like in the movie, to go check out the island. And the biggest difference here from their journey is they meet a small kid named Otto, and not as in like German Otto, but Atu, if you want to pronounce it, they're tribal. But he speaks English, and that automatically makes us completely different from Kong Skull Island because you had Morrow, who was there, who was the World War II pilot that was trapped on there, and apparently he taught this kid's grandfather or father English, and it's been traveled through there. So I think that was kind of weird that when their original mission to Skull Island took place, that none of them people spoke up and they let Morrow speak for them. But so maybe during that time that none of the other iwi had spoken to the crew for Skull Island. I'm assuming maybe this kid's father and grandfather, maybe they were in the Yunnan rainforest in China on vacation visiting the Titanus Mosora. You know, maybe they were on a vacation visiting Mothra. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird that none of them spoke up during the time that Brooks and the rest of the crew were there checking out the island. But anyways, they wound up going through a slaughter just trying to discover Kong and whatnot. And most of the other people don't wind up. None of them matter except for a man called Riccio. It's kind of weird to pronounce his name, Riccio. But he's kind of he speaks 5 languages, and he's basically there to, I guess, kind of talk to the natives if they need it, and that's what he wants. And basically, this whole book brews down to him and Aaron Brooks, and as the rest of their crew gets slaughtered, and while they're injured, they've got this medicinal brew to heal their wounds, because one of them is severely injured running from these new death jackals we see. And they've kind of reminiscent of Boom Studios' raptor devil things from their Kong of Skull Island books. There's a lot of similarities. And now that I'm to that, this brew gives Riccio, I guess that's how you pronounce that, visions, much like you would see in the Kong Gods of Skull Islands from Boom Studios. So there's a lot of comparisons right there, and you'll get a lot of new fauna as I continue on with this. But anyways, much like in that book, where he sees the paintings that the iwi have, and even when they go to the ship, the Venture, to see more, he sees basically the history of Kong. And that's the thing. He's all about the people, and expressing their love for Kong, and he's wanting to meet Kong. And basically, the iwi tell him they have a pilgrimage to go meet Kong, and he's all about it. And the other guys are like, no, we need to find our ship, because this experimental helicopter plane thing they brought has been crashed, which was attacked by psycho vultures, which are pretty cool. I think they were in the beginning of Kong Skull Island when they were flying in, but you didn't see them blasting these bolts of, looks like lightning out of their mouth, which you kind of see here in the beginning of the book. But anyways, as he's having these visions, this is where you learn the birth of Kong. And this planet, God, that sounds horrible, which I guess this is turned to a planet of monsters. Now think about it. The island, Skull Island, was once a paradise, and the Kong species lived there, and it was beautiful. And you really kind of gather that in the beginning of the Kong Skull Island movie. And much like any other version of Skull Island, which is presented as savage and primitive, if you watch the movie, it is beautiful. I mean, it is breathtaking. They went to, I think, Vietnam to shoot that, and it's wonderful. It looks great. And oddly enough, when I went and watched the movie afterwards, there was a woman that sat there and told me that she had been exactly where that movie was shot, which I really don't believe. That's kind of weird. But anyways, he has the visions, and he tells a story. And the Kongs were on the island, and then the Earth, the scroll callers, they came up from within the Earth, and they battled the Kong for millions of years. And when the iwi left whatever land they had come from, which I'm going to assume is somewhere in Asia, they were greeted on the island by the 2 remaining Kong, a male and a female. And they were protecting them from the predators on the island. And the female Kong was with child. And the scroll callers just kept coming on, and these were the last 2 Kong, and they are the skeletons that you see in the boneyard. Those are Kong's parents, and you're learning this from Atu, or A2, however you want to pronounce his name, and Riccio, as he's telling them. And he's kind of gone mad. He's become obsessed with Kong being a god, and he wants to meet Kong. And as the mother gave birth, the father held off the scroll callers, and as she gave birth to Kong, she put them in their lair, and you find out that their lair is now where the boneyard is, where the skull scrawlers have come from. And she boxes him in their lair with rocks and goes to try to help the father, and basically Kong watches his parents die. And as the scroll callers, they leave the bodies there, he crawls out and he emerges and cries to basically the gods above, that he just watched his parents murdered. And at that time I realized, oh my god, the Kong for legendary for the Monsterverse is Batman. He watched his parents murdered, he vows vengeance, and he spends his entire life on Skull Island defeating the creatures there. The creatures that murdered his parents. Just like Batman spends his times in his home of Gotham taking down the criminals so no one has to suffer like his parents did. Now if you take that and you look at Godzilla 2014, it is much like Man of Steel. A thing with ungodly power shows up to defeat an evil that has come to Earth. The Mutos. They have an all-out battle in a city that destroys the majority of it. Probably kills thousands of people. Leaves thousands without homes, foods, destroys their ways of life, and is hailed a hero. So in that sense, Godzilla is Superman. And now they're on a collision course. So maybe we're going to get, Godzilla versus Kong, Dawn of Monsters, or maybe Dawn of Destruction. I just thought that was kind of funny in this scene. And even if you look at issue 3, the cover is both Kong, baby Kong, yelling to the sky and crying because both his parents are dead at his feet. So it's kind of weird when you put it like that. But anyways, as they come through, Kong, we find out, is called by the Iwi the Mountain Who Thunders Death. And basically, and it's neat because you realize that I think he is literally protective of people that aren't basically a disease to the planet, because as we find out, Ricio is very obsessed with the people. The Iwi need to be judged by Kong. He is their god, and he wants to find out if he is an angry, wrathful god, or a god who cares about his people and loves them and protects them. Because you're seeing Kong in this in the beginning of the book. The crew, Houston's crew, they're running for their lives as they get on the island, and Kong shows up and kills the death jackals. And you kind of wonder, why would he protect this crew? He's never seen them, especially if you call back to the beginning of Skull Island, the movie. He attacked the helicopters and whatnot when they had showed up. Well, and then I got to thinking, maybe he wasn't protecting them. He was protecting the Iwi who were coming to see them, because the Iwi have been expecting them because of their metal birds from the sky, and they're calling them like the sky people. So they're expecting them. They've come to, you look at Morrow, sky person. You look at the expedition from 1973, sky people. They all came in what? Metal birds. Here we are, 95, the same thing. Well, anyways, his plan is to blow up the wall, bring down the wall of the Iwi, and let Kong judge them. Will he protect them? And he does this with munitions that were left behind from Houston Brooks's crew. And I thought that was kind of funny. It's kind of odd. They find a bazooka, like a rocket launcher, like an RPG, and it looks modern day, but yet it was left there from 1973. But anyways, he uses bombs and whatnot that they have to blow down the wall. And the creatures that were in the spider creatures, oh man, what are those things called? Give me just a second. I've got them here somewhere. Anyways, that had the little stingers that come down that were in the bamboo thing. A bunch of those come. And he's just like yelling, will Kong come save you? He's very obsessed with this. And then this giant spider thing shows up. And no, it's not Cucamonga. It may be, but no, if that's a new Cucamonga, that's cool. But anyways, Kong shows up. He kills them. He kills the giant spider. And he's like, oh, Kong has come to save us. Our God does love us and whatnot. And he smashes them. And then you find out from the Iwi that the pilgrimage was not meant for Ricio like everybody thought it was, because no one wanted anything to do with this pilgrimage but Ricio. No, it was meant for Aaron Brooks. So at the end, the people tell him that you can't escape the island. The tide brings everything back in. So he takes a boat in his Monarch messaging system. It's a recorder. He puts it in a bag, and he sends it on a boat. And he feels that is his calling to stay and help these people rebuild. And then here you go. It was a whole 95 to 2005, almost 20 years later. His message is found by an American ship off of Australia and taken to his father. And so his father's enjoying his retirement, and he decides, hey, what are you going to do? I'm going to take a cruise. They're like, to Alaska. He said, no, a tropical cruise. So obviously he's going to go find his son. So as that wraps up, I'm very curious to see if we're going to get to meet Aaron and an older Houston Brooks in the beginning of Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong. Because he's still living on that island, and obviously if Kong is fond of him, much like he was to Brie Larson's character in Kong Skull Island, you assume that he's going to be around, and he would be a great segue from the people to, his father when they come back. So hopefully that'll play out in this movie, or maybe we're going to see more comics. I'm hoping with all this timeline stuff that Monarch Sciences has laid out here for San Diego Comic-Con, and now that the timeline has synced up with this book, we'll get to see more of that play out before Godzilla King of the Monsters, which Godzilla 2014 had got a prequel book, which some people say they say it's not canon, but some say it is. So maybe I need to do a review over that for this weekend. But I'm curious now that we know where Mothra's at in China. I'm pretty sure there are people there that might be much like the Iwi that would worship Mothra, since she is considered to be the goddess of monsters, much like the queen of monsters, I should say, that was on the satellite map. And so I'm very curious to see how that all plays out. Now, there's some of the monsters that show up, which I know kaiju fans love their monsters. In the back of these books, there's some Monarch research files, which we see the Psycho Vulture. I'm not going to read off everything on it. And then we have the Wingleaf, which winds up picking up the guy on the boat when they get Morrow's boat going. Those things were leaf wings. We have the Death Jackals, which basically are kind of like raptors. We have the Magma Turtle, which basically it's this turtle with a giant rocky shell that has basically looks like palm trees growing on it. We have a swamp locust, which basically kind of looks like a giant grub. If you've ever seen the parasites under a microscope that they say that live on the skin on your face, that's kind of what they look like to me. We have the Spore Mantis, which was the thing that lived in the tree, which was in the movie, so we've seen that. There was one other really cool thing besides the spiders that they run from, and this is where they find the munitions. At first, I thought it was Biolante. This big thing of moss and like swamp grass emerged, and they ran from it. And then Kong showed up, and that's where Ricio was trying to test to see if Kong would save them. And there's a fight, and then they find the munitions. They go back to fight this thing with Kong, and Kong's gone. And you find out it's basically almost like a giant alligator, but the way its face is shaped, and you could say it is Biolante. But we'll never know because we never got to see the fight. We just seen it emerge. So that was really cool. Maybe a little teaser. But it's a really good book. It ties into the MonsterVerse. So if you love that stuff as much as I do, you should read it. The one question I do have is when the Iwi had met the mated Kong, they were the typical size of Kong from Skull Island, but yet Morrow told them that he's still growing. But these were fully grown adults, so I'm not very sure how that's going to play out when Kong collides with Godzilla, because he's about 100 foot in that movie, and they're about 100 foot, like even throughout the book. And let me tell you, there's some great artwork of just Kongs fighting skull crawlers in this book. Like, you should buy it just for that. It's beautiful. There's a whole page spread where, the volcano's erupting, it's nighttime, and there's just Kongs and skull crawlers for as long as you can see, and it's really, really beautiful, and it's really great artwork. But just based on that, I'm wondering exactly how big Kong is going to get to fight Godzilla, because like I said, there are fully grown adult Kongs in this book, and they get no bigger than what he does in the movie. But an idea for a story I've always wanted to have is with Kong being his normal size, as Godzilla comes to Skull Island because he feels that there's a threat there, and this would be maybe like High Side Godzilla. But Mothra, being the protector that she is, shows up so Godzilla cannot kill the Kong. King Kong gets swatted by Godzilla's tail accidentally in the battle. While him and Mothra are battling, Godzilla blasts her with his atomic breath. She explodes in divine radiant energy, which throws Godzilla off the island. While Kong's knocked out, he kind of opens up and he realizes that things are bigger, and Mothra's divine power has entered him and made him big enough to fight Godzilla. So he chases Godzilla back to the Japanese mainland, and they have a big brawl in Tokyo. Could it happen in the movie? I don't know. It would be interesting. But I'm pretty excited for this weekend. We get the Godzilla King of the Monsters trailer. Maybe we'll get some more stuff in Kong. I know there is a Sideshow collectible statue that is very reminiscent from Peter Jackson's King Kong, where he's fighting the V-Rex, but it's Kong fighting the Skullcrawler. Looked online, it's like $1,000. I've got like the $1,000 Godzilla Sideshow done, so I'm going to buy that. But I'm JVD. This has been my review for Skull Island, The Birth of Kong. Keep reading, guys.